Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or it's 2 a.m. Go to bed already. This is Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon, finally, with an actual camera, showing my, I still think, deformed face. I still keep looking in this preview window here, and it still looks so... It looks like my head is narrowed, and I can't figure out why. I don't know, maybe it's just my preview window and it's going to turn out fine. We'll find out. I don't care right now. But anyway, we got a lot to talk about. I still want to talk about kind of the cheap way to convert an older high-end system into a modern high-end rig. But there has been one tech story that has been sweeping all of tech and all of the regular news. And that is the Apple encryption, I guess you'd call it, case. So, what is it? What is it in a nutshell? Well, let me give you the basics first, before moving on. As you most likely know, there was a terrorist attack in California, in San Bernardino. This was, God, I want to say 3 or 4 months ago now. It feels like it's been a while ago. But in any case, it is technically the second biggest terrorist attack on U.S. soil. The first, of course, being 9/11. However, saying it that way is kind of overhyping how bad it was. It only was casualties of 14 people. Now, that's not to say that those 14 people do not matter. They do. They matter a lot. Now, what they're trying to do right now is that they're trying to figure out what the motive was. How were they radicalized? Were they just found some article one day on the internet and just decide, oh, hey, let's go show up my work? Or were they radicalized by ISIS? Nobody knows at this point. There are a lot of assumptions, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, but there's not a lot of facts. And that's what the FBI is trying to get to. One of the shooters has a government-issued iPhone 5C. First off, I go and chuckle a little bit, because, come on, an iPhone 5C? Really? That little plastic, colorful things that's really only suited for high school students? Really? That thing? Oh. Anyway. The problem is that this phone is locked. It's locked with either a 4-digit PIN or a long password. There might be a few other ways it could be locked. I'm not all up to speed on Apple's password systems. But the bottom line is that the phone is encrypted. So even if you take the thing apart and just get straight at the flash module, the part that stores all the information on the phone, it's encrypted and unreadable. So the FBI went to court, and the court told Apple, you have to decrypt this phone. You have to unlock it. And Apple went and said, no, they are defying a court order. Now, there's also a lot of other details to this, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Here is what Apple's response is. They put out a letter to their consumers. They put this out on February 16th. Currently, I am recording this on February the 21st, on Sunday. This podcast will then go out on Wednesday morning when all the other ones do. The reason I'm recording it early is because I'm having a lot of scheduling problems, so I'm just pretty much recording it when I can. So, here is what the message says. A message to our customers. The United States government has demanded that Apple take an unprecedented step which threatens the security of our customers. We oppose this order, which has implications far beyond the legal case at hand. This This moment calls for for public discussion, and we want our customers and people around the country to understand what is at stake. Let me interject for a minute. Already this is overhyping it a lot more than it actually is. Granted, this is a bit of a slippery slope, but Apple here is making it sound like their frickin' company as a whole, or that cell phones as we use them now, are at stake. And it's nowhere near as bad as that, but there is quite a bit at stake. The story continues, or the letter continues. The need for encryption. Smartphones, led by the iPhone, let me interject. No. No, they're not. You are the first out there that has kind of ushered in this new wave of smartphones, but you weren't the first, and currently you're not the biggest. Android phones as a whole have you. Just thought I'd put that out there real quick. Stop hyping yourself. Anyway, that just bugs me a bit, but moving on. The need for encryption. Smartphones, led by iPhone, have become an essential part of our lives. People use them to store incredible amounts of personal information from our private conversations to our photos to our music, our notes, our calendars, and contacts, our financial information and health data, even where we have been and where we are going. All that information needs to be protected from hackers and criminals who want to access it, steal it, and use it without our knowledge or permission. Customers expect Apple and other technology companies to do everything in our power to protect their personal information, and at Apple, we are deeply committed to safeguarding their data. Let me interject. I agree with this 1,000%. Completely agree. Basically, your life is written down in your phone. Unless you're my dad, then, I don't know, it's written on a notebook. I didn't have any follow-up to that, but there are still people out there who don't have smartphones. Anyway, the letter continues. Compromising the security of our personal information can ultimately put our personal safety at risk. That is why encryption has become so important to all of us. For many years, we have used encryption to protect our customers' personal data because we believe it's the only way to keep their information safe. We have even put that data out of our own reach because we believe the contents of your iPhone are none of our business. Let me interject. Thank you! The letter continues. The San Bernardino case. We were shocked and outraged by the deadly act of terrorism in San Bernardino last December. Was I actually close? I said 3 or 4 months. Yeah, so I was actually close. That was almost a half shot in the dark, because I literally couldn't remember. Anyway. We mourn the loss of life and want justice for all those whose lives were affected. The FBI asked us to help in the days following the attack. We have worked hard to support the government's efforts to solve this horrible crime. We have no sympathy for terrorists. Good. That's all I got to that. When the FBI has requested data that's in our possession, we have provided it. Apple complies with valid subpoenas and search warrants, as we have in the San Bernardino case. We have also made Apple engineers able to advise the FBI, and we've offered our best ideas on a number of investigative options at their disposal. We have great respect for the professionals at the FBI, and we believe their intentions are good. Up to this point, we have done everything that is both within our power and within the law to help them. But now the U.S. government has asked us for something we simply do not have. and something we consider too dangerous to create. They have asked us to build a backdoor They have asked us to build a backdoor to the iPhone. Specifically, the FBI wants us to make a new version of the iPhone operating system, circumvent several important security features, and install it on an iPhone recovered during the investigation. In the wrong hands, this software, which does not exist today, would have the potential to unlock any iPhones in someone's physical possession. The FBI may want to use different words to describe this tool, but make no mistake, building a version of iOS that bypasses security in this way would undeniably create a backdoor. While the government may argue that its use would be limited to this case, there is no way to guarantee such control. Let me interject. This is something that's not getting out there very much. A lot of it is specifically saying that they're just saying that they want Apple to help crack the phone, not to create a solve-all key or a new copy of an operating system that would bypass this. That's an important detail in this, and that's one that's not getting out. So, the letter continues. I keep saying the story continues, and it's not a story. The threat to data security. Some would argue that building a backdoor just for one iPhone is a simple, clean-cut solution, but it ignores both the basics of digital security and the significance of what the government is demanding in this case. In today's digital world, the key to an encrypted system is a piece of information that unlocks the data, and it is only as secure as the protection around it. Once the information is known, or a way to bypass the code is revealed, the encryption can be defeated by anyone with that knowledge. Let me interject. This is completely true. For those of you who don't know, there was an encryption tool a while ago called TrueCrypt. TrueCrypt was a piece of software that you could install on a hard drive, and it would encrypt the entire hard drive, and only your password would unlock it. This was to say if I was transporting say, I don't know. Let's just say for my other job with the laundromat, a hard drive that contained all of the financial data for all the various hospitals we deal with. Or the addresses of those hospitals. Those sorts of things. TrueCrypt was a tool that I don't do that, by the way. TrueCrypt would be a tool that would be very useful for making sure that even if the hard drive was stolen from me, that it would be safe. That no one could get at that data at all. However, it eventually got out that there was a master copy of the encryption key. And once that became known to the public for TrueCrypt, TrueCrypt basically overnight was worthless. Completely and utterly worthless. And that's what Apple is concerned with their current encryption system. So, let's move on. The government suggests that this tool could only be used once on one phone. Oh wait, I already said that. Wait, did I? I already lost my place. Oh no, I was on that cover. The government suggests that this tool could only be used once on one phone, but that's simply not true. Once created, the technique could be used over and over again on any number of devices. In a physical world, it would be the equivalent of a master key, capable of opening hundreds of millions of locks, from restaurants and banks to stores and homes. No reasonable person would find that acceptable. The government is asking Apple to hack our own users and undermine decades of security advancements that would protect our customers, including tens of millions of American citizens, from sophisticated hackers and cybercriminals. I don't know why I read that wrong. The hyphen threw me off. Anyway, the same engineers who built strong encryption into the iPhone to protect our users would, ironically, be ordered to weaken the protections and make our users less safe. We can find no precedent for an American company being forced to expose its customers to a greater risk of attack. For years, cryptologists and national security experts have been warning against the weakening of encryption. Doing so would only hurt the well-meaning and law-abiding citizens who rely on companies like Apple to protect their data. Criminals and bad actors will still encrypt using tools that are readily available to them. The tool I was just talking about, TrueCrypt, used to being one of them. There are other ones right now, but I don't know of them. Or do I? No, I don't. I seriously don't. A dangerous precedent. Rather than asking for legislative actions through Congress, the FBI is proposing an unprecedented use of All Rights Act of 1789 to justify an expansion of its authority. I'm going to try and avoid commenting on that. It's going to be really hard. The government would have us remove security features and add new capabilities to the operating system, allowing the passcode to be input electronically. This would make it easier to unlock an iPhone by brute force, trying thousands or millions of combinations with the speed of a modern computer. Let me interject. No. That is simply not true. For starters, you can already electronically brute force the iPhone just because of one thing. The iPhone has the ability to comprehend a keyboard. Because it has the ability to comprehend a keyboard, you can already hook up a device, whether through the Lightning port, whether through the 30-pin connector, whether it be through Bluetooth, and you can emulate a keyboard and still do this. This already exists. What already stops a brute force attack is the fact that after I'm trying to remember on iPhone, after a certain number of tries, the phone locks you out for a certain amount of time, and then after even more tries after that without a delay period, the phone will just flat out wipe itself clean. At the time, I was confused by the function. Seemed kind of excessive for a consumer device, which was how the iPhone was sold at the time, but it was there. And that's actually going to bring me to a point later on. So I'm going to save that for now. The letter continues. The implications of the government's demands are chilling. If the government can use the All Rights Act to make it easier to unlock your iPhone, it would have the power to reach into anyone's device to capture their data. The government could extend this breach of privacy and demand that Apple build surveillance software to intercept your messages, access your health records or financial data, track your location, or even access your phone's microphone or camera without your knowledge. Opposing this order is not something we take lightly. We feel we must speak up in the face of what we see as an overreach of the U.S. government. We are challenging the FBI's demands with deepest respect for the American democracy and a love for all our country. We believe it would be in the best interest of everyone to step back and consider the implications. While we believe the FBI's intentions are good, it would be wrong for the government to force us to build a backdoor into our products, and ultimately, we fear that this demand would undermine the very freedoms and liberty our government is meant to protect. That is from Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. So, how long did it take me to read that? It took me 20 minutes. So, let me just go over something real quick for 5 minutes. I'd like you to think back a few years. There was a company called Research in Motion. Research in Motion made a phone called the BlackBerry. This was the gold standard for security. And it was used by the US government. It was used by businesses everywhere. It was the professional phone. Hands down. No exceptions. Now RIM is gone. Not gone, but they basically aren't even a factor anymore. The BlackBerry OS is not even thought about. And for the longest time, people like me, and I'll admit, I had no faith in Apple's security. Apple, for the longest time, on their Mac OS, keeps saying they're secure, but when push comes to shove, they were only secure through being obscure. The Mac OS itself was very easy to break into. There were tons of security holes, and patches weren't introduced until several months after the flaws were found. Now look at where Apple is. In this day and age of the NSA supposedly spying on everything, possibly even spying in on me recording this right now, on all these fears of Big Brother watching us because the NSA can do whatever they want over the internet, they can't break into an iPhone. I never thought I'd see the day when Apple finally, at long last, gets its act together and actually has security not just good enough for the average user or for a business just wanting to keep the names of their customers safe, but to actually have their security strong enough that the FBI itself cannot get through a phone. That's insane. That's kind of funny in a weird way, isn't it? But in all seriousness, this does bring up an interesting point. We do need to get into this phone. The government needs to. We have to find out if this was just an oddball encounter or if there's something bigger being planned. However, Apple also has an extremely good point. It doesn't take much for the government to leak out important tools, unfortunately. It's not as simple as just making a key and then destroying it forever. It's much more complex than that. Because you're talking about software. Software can be copied without you even knowing it. You don't even know if there are moles on the project to get a hold of it. It's just, I don't know where I stand on this. I really don't. And it's a hard call to make. On one hand, I 100% agree with Apple. You shouldn't undermine this encryption. On the other hand, the government needs to get in. We need to know. It's not tinfoil hat conspiracy nonsense. They need to get in there. It's information we need to have. Well, I can guarantee you as we speak, as I said, there's either a guy going in trying to brute force the password in, or the FBI is working, or the FBI already has built a device to connect via the Lightning port and brute force it electronically while this is hashed out. But this also brings up another point. And so far the only people I've heard bring this up are kind of far-right extremists like Rush Limbaugh. And that's, if one terrorist can do this, Who's to say the rest of them can't just go get some other iPhone and communicate that way? The spy network's now shattered because of that. The Apple messaging is encrypted on the phone's end. Apple can't be used to spy on that. And on one hand, I say good. I don't want Apple spying on the average citizen. But it also makes it harder to predict incidents like San Bernardino, like 9/11, like the Paris attack. Though the Paris attack was done through, I want to say, the PlayStation Network? Regardless. It is a hard conversation to have. And it's one where there is no clear-cut answer. The right-wing way of doing it versus the left-wing way of doing it, neither one is 100% correct. And currently, I think it's safe to say there is no solution that is 100% correct. Nor do I think there will be a solution that's 100% correct in a very, very long time. I can say this, though. And some people are going to be disappointed that I'm going to say this. I do agree with Rush that this is only going to get bigger as time progresses, and more incidents like this, where iPhones and possibly even Android phones need to get broken into, and there's just no solution to get into them. But in any case, we'll talk more about that after the break. I'll be right back. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon. So we already went over the Apple letter, and my opinion, kind of in a nutshell, while kind of rambling a little bit about what other people have said. I want to get a little bit into more about what other people have said. First off, we have Ars Technica. The article is entitled, "Encryption Isn't at Stake. The FBI knows Apple already has the desired key." The FBI knows it can't bypass the encryption, it just wants to try more than 10 pins. Let that sink in for a minute. The FBI knows Apple already has the desired key. But its subtitle says the FBI knows it can't bypass the encryption, it just wants more than 10 pins. Granted, more than 10 pins would be great for trying to brute force this thing in. 10 pins later, all the data is gone. So you got to make sure those 9 count. Now, I'm not sure if that counter ever resets, but that's the thing. Well, that's not... Actually, let me take that back. That's not the thing. The problem is that while the sub-headline makes sense, the top headline does not. If Apple already had the desired key, they'd go in, punch it in, walk away, and the only thing that would come of it is that the letter would never have existed. Because if Apple put out this letter and then later hard evidence showed that Apple had the key to begin with, that entire letter is now null and void, and their credibility is shot completely. So, it's already stupid. This article, I haven't even read a sentence into the article. And this article already infuriates me with how much stupid it's filled with. But, let's continue. Or let's even begin. We haven't even begun. Apple has been served with a court order at the FBI's request demanding that it assist the government agency with unlocking an iPhone C that was used by Saeed Rizwal Farooq and his wife, Tashfeen Malik, killed 14 and injured 24 in an attack in San Bernardino, In response, Apple CEO Tim Cook said that the FBI was demanding the equivalent of a backdoor and that copying and complying with the FBI's demand would undermine the security of all iPhones. Whether you call it a backdoor or not, it's important to recognize that the ordered changes to the iPhone operating system will not circumvent the core of the iPhone's encryption. Let me interject. How do you know that? Literally, how do you know that? So let's just say for a minute that you're going on the basis that the FBI knows it can't bypass the encryption, it just wants to try more than 10 pins. That is a backdoor. The sole reason that the 4-digit pin is actually secure is the fact that after so many tries, in this case 10, the phone's wiped clean. Frickin' Department of Defense style. So, bypassing that wall is in fact a backdoor. It's not even negotiable. It flat out is a backdoor. And if you want to go, oh, but that means you have to go try all... How many would it be? 1,280 combinations? I'll figure that out later. It's still a backdoor. You can still hook up an electronic device and brute force it in. Go. 11111. No, dang. 1112. No, dang. 11113. No, dang. 1114. You can just have a device do it at the speed of that. And try all 1,000 combinations, and the only thing stopping you would be the speed of the phone. So, you know, half hour later, you're in. You know, Ars Technica, which is normally a very savvy tech site, is mind-blowingly stupid! Flat out! The court isn't asking Apple to defeat the encryption in any way, nor does the court require Apple to create a vulnerability that would jeopardize security, but rather is asking Apple to do one thing that it can do. Use the iPhone's built-in method of installing firmware written by Apple. Are you kidding me? Did anyone proofread this? Anyone? No one? Is there an editor here? This is the dumbest thing I've ever read. Seriously? That's not bypassing anything. Using the built-in method of installing firmware written by Apple. Yeah, okay. The FBI wants to search. Blah, 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 blah. Does this thing actually get to anything that's the encryption used by? There's a multi-tiered system at the core. Blah, blah, blah. And they go into the details of it. The hardware key is used to generate blah. The only reason I'm even going through this real quick is just to see if at some point they try to justify their stupidity. There's some minor nuances over where the hardware key is stored, blah, 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 blah. It's important to note here the cryptology is aspect and robust. The FBI is not asking for, and The FBI is not asking for, and Apple are surely could not provide, any kind of bypass, backdoor, cryptography parts of the system. There is no master key. Yeah, there isn't. But it's still a backdoor, by the definition of what a backdoor is. You're trying to put out every single detail of what Apple says their system is, and you are using this to confuse the reader into thinking you know what you're talking about. However, you are forgetting what the bare definition of backdoor is! I'm sorry for slapping the table, but come on! Do you know tech or not? Oh, it's 10,000 combinations. I'm sorry. The article says so. Although I have to assume that they could math. Actually, let me just math this real quick. Wait, no, it's 10 times 10 times 10. Yeah, so it's 10,000. No, that is right. They can math. I don't know why I was thinking I had to do 4 to the 4th. Anyway. First that the iPhone imposed a delay between the... Yeah, I already talked about that. The second technique is that the phone can be configured to wipe. Yes, I already said that. The third and final technique is that when the PIN key from the PIN is taken approximately 80 milliseconds. Yeah, so basically this whole article is just going through all the various details. Once again, making it sound like they don't know what they're talking about. The thing is that it fails to recognize that these sort of changes to the iPhone do in fact compromise the iPhone. It compromises any security device. To remove these barriers to brute force the phone in is in fact a backdoor. Ars Technica. What is wrong with you? I don't even know. I don't even want to read the rest of this. The rest of this is just nonsense. This is 20 paragraphs, of which 15 of it is pretty much just copy-pasted from Apple's site of how they do their encryption. But they're trying to defend the FBI in this way, and saying that that what the FBI is talking about does not... that what the FBI is trying to do does not create a backdoor at all. I don't even know what to say anymore. It's a backdoor. The various layers of the PIN system, of the password system, are put in to prevent brute forcing. If you take that away, you now have a backdoor in place that can be opened via brute forcing. Ars, do you even talk to a white hat hacker? Do you even try? This just looks like blind allegiance to the court order, not even doing an ounce of research. Except for, going to Apple's site and pulling down, 15 paragraphs of how their key works. And here's actually some of the dumber ones. I look over here at Apple's encryption battle here, and it has various other articles here. Some of the headlines just make me want to just explode. Apple, we tried to help the FBI terror probe, but someone changed iCloud password. That reeks of stupid. Trump urges supporters to boycott Apple in wake of encryption. Brouhaha. First off, whoever invented the word brouhaha, tisk. So many made-up words, it's hard to keep track of them all. Feds to court. Apple must be forced to help us unlock seized iPhone. Senate Intel chief backs off on bill criminalizing refusal to aid decryption. Senator drafting bill to criminalize... Alright, so there's a bill in the Senate to try and criminalize refusal to aid decryption. That's actually news I didn't hear. I have no idea where that's going to go, unfortunately, because regardless of how common sense it may or may not seem, right now the Senate, House, and the White House they're in the middle of a what's the right term? It's an election year. And you have a House of Representatives that is heavily dominated by Republicans. And then you have a Senate which is in Republican control, but some of the dumbest rules in all of existence have it so the minority, led by Harry Reid, can lock the Senate up at a moment. What's called the filibuster. While the filibuster originally existed to allow the minority to get a voice in on something, Harry Reid, being the spiteful little prick that he is, just uses it out of spite. Whether you support Republicans or not, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, really doesn't matter. Harry Reid's just a prick. And Harry Reid is a Democrat. But that doesn't mean that all Democrats are bad. Harry Reid, though, is. Someone get rid of him. He's just the worst. And then you have Obama also playing politics up at the top. If all the Republicans support this bill, he too would probably just veto it out of spite too. And that's the unfortunate makeup of the political world. And with how partisan it's being lately, the same would happen even if it was flipped. Even if it was a Republican in the White House and the Democrats had control of both the House and the Senate. You'd still have Republicans filibustering anything that the Senate did, and then even if something managed somehow to get through, it would probably still get vetoed. That's the unfortunate makeup of that. But enough about politics. I'm here to talk about tech, but that's why I have no hope in this supposed bill to criminalize refusal to aid decryption. And on top of that, it looks like that the Senate Intel chief is already backing off on the bill. So, rip. Alright, so Apple says, we tried to help the FBI terror probe, but someone changed their iCloud password. No other company has asked Apple for what the US is asking for now. I don't even get where they're coming from on this. But someone changed their iCloud password. What does that have to do with anything? Like, enough about that, though. And now CNN is saying that the encryption case, billions are at stake. I don't know how billions can possibly be at stake. But apparently Apple's being blasted for fighting court order. Again, I don't know. I still have very torn opinions about this. Because the court order is for something that's just absolutely terrible. And I gotta applaud Apple for definitely making a letter and giving every single detail about it. No, enough about this. This is just making my head hurt. I promised last week that I would get into kind of the sort of stuff I used to do with converting special kinds of computers into rather high-end gaming rigs. And I'll go over that, how to do it, and how you can do it on your own, and a little bit about that. But one last thing about the Apple case. I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. There is no correct answer. What the FBI is asking for is something that can cause major, major problems. And despite what places like Ars Technica is trying to say, it is a backdoor. It flat out is a backdoor. Anything that bypasses whatever security you have in place, whether it be tearing down a few layers of security, is technically a backdoor. All these articles, whether it's from CNN, whether it's from Fox, whether it's from Ars Technica, pick one. It doesn't matter. All of them have backdoor in quotes. It's a backdoor. It just is. There's no mystery about it. But again, there's no correct answer in this. The FBI is asking for something that is out of the norm. It is something that could possibly ruin encryption. And in a world where more and more people, whether it be white hat hackers, whether they be NSA agents, whether they be FBI agents, or whether they be the actual criminals, black hat hackers, encryption is important. And to have that sort of information secured on a phone is really important. And what this really does for me, more than anything, is that it does make me wonder. As someone who has a Samsung phone, how good is the security on this guy? It actually has me curious now. I have no idea if I'll ever find out that answer. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But it definitely is a check for why to get an iPhone over an Android phone that I never, ever, ever, ever thought I would be able to put into the column of the iPhone. And I give you props. At the very least, I give you props for that. So, we'll take a break here and we'll get into some fun stuff. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. If you noticed, I had a Fox News tab up when I was talking about the Apple stuff. It was just talking about how Apple would be allowed to keep or destroy the software, but I already talked about how you can't really trust that because you never have any idea what sort of moles or whatever could be within the system. And plus, no, who cares? It's a minor article from them, and it's just nobody cares. So, let's go and actually kind of part something out. First, let's go to eBay. Now, there's a couple things you could do. Let's say you just want something cheap, something kind of on the low end. Let's say your budget is $300, and you want something that can play games relatively well. Well, few things you need to look for. You need a computer to be the base, and then you need some parts to pop into it. Now, unfortunately, for AMD's sake, almost all the parts I'm going to be talking about are NVIDIA based. Which is a shame, because I would love to give AMD some love, but they got nothing. Damn shame. I hope better from you, AMD, down the road. Alright, so, like I said, let's say your budget is $700. I don't know why my deals is about jewelry. I've never looked up jewelry. I've looked up headphones, though. That makes sense. So anyway, let's say you want a base. One good base is, say, a Dell Optiplex. We'll go with a 790. Oh, okay. So you can see you can get quite a few here. And you can really just grab any one. Let's just grab one out of the blue. I was hoping for a mid-tower. Oh, God, no. That's way too high. God, the mid-towers are... They want kidneys for those mid-towers. You know what? Here, I'll go with this one. So, why this one? There are three form factors of the Optiplex. There is the small form factor, there is the mid-tower, and there's the desktop form factor. This one is a desktop. I can tell because of full-size CD-ROM. And the reason we're going to be going with this one is because, first off, it's cheaper, and second, there is a special add-on card you can get with it. And I'll just quickly look it up. Riser. And it looks like I'm not going to have any luck. That's a dang shame. But yeah, I would say go with a mid-tower if you could. If you can't, then go for something like this. Get a riser card. Riser card's going to be about another $50. Then what you do is that you got to look at these specs right here. Right now you've got a Core i3, 3.3 gigahertz, so it's only a dual core. It's 4 gigs of RAM, but there's no hard drive, so you also need to get a hard drive. So you just grab a 3.5 inch hard drive disk. Grab a used one, who cares? There we go, there's a big 500 gigger. And you could, and actually for that kind of money, it was at 40. I would almost say go for a new one at that point, because only $10 more and you get a new one and be guaranteed it would have a long life. But that's totally up to you. You just want to make sure on that it's compatible with whatever system you get. In this case, the 790 is SATA, and this is SATA as well. And the last thing you want is you want a graphic card. Now, this is one to keep in mind, because this is actually very nice for turning low-end systems into a halfway decent gaming computer. Write this down. It's the NVIDIA GTX 750 Ti. This card is unique, but you got to make sure you get one that is stock. No overclocking. No fancy this or that. You want a stock GTX 750. And here's one right here. And I'm also going to grab this one right here just to point out a few things. Now, this doesn't look very impressive, but this one card has the graphic performance of an Xbox One. So with this, for about $300, you've got a system that you just do a little bit of tweaking to, and you've basically got a gaming PC that can keep up with an Xbox. Not bad. But the reason you want to make sure that you get one that is stock is because you don't want this. I don't know if you can see it at all. And you can't. Well, you're going to have to take my word for it. Up towards the top of this card, you will see a 6-pin connector. You want to avoid cards that have this, because on the inside of this computer, there is no place for this to get power. And therefore, the card is worthless for your purposes on a standard desktop. Pretty much any standard desktop you get, you're not going to have an auxiliary connector, which means a 6-pin or an 8-pin for the graphic card. You want something that doesn't. And the 750 Ti is the most powerful card you can get for gaming performance without exceeding the wattage limits And because once you exceed it's 75, once you exceed 75 watts on the card, it's gonna need a 6-pin connector. You want to avoid that. Now, let's say we want to get fancier. Let's say we want to go for something like my rig. In fact, let me go build out my rig. My rig, its base, is a Dell Precision T7400. These are what are called workstations. Workstations are professional computers that are designed for high-end applications. You will see them at clinics for stuff like rendering X-ray images, for radiology, for simulating various things. It's also used in engineering for CAD design, for building the layout for bridges. It's also used in research. This is what businesses use when they need a lot of horsepower. So, what is so unique about this one? This one is massive. And I mean massive. This tower sits at 2 feet tall. You can even see how wide it is. Those standard graphic card slots here, that's standard width. So this thing exceeds that width. There's your ports down there. You have ventilation there, ventilation there, ventilation there, and your massive power supply at the top there. You also have a lot of wattage to play with. Whereas something like an Optiplex can only push out like 300 watts, so you're extremely limited as to what you can put in there. This computer can pump out a maximum of 1,000 watts out of that power supply. No problem. Now, this particular one, I'm actually curious to see if we've got... This one only has one processor. That's the other thing that's really unique about these particular systems. They have 2 processor slots. Now, the other thing is that a lot of listers like listing these at stupid high prices. And these can go for stupid high prices when they're new. I hate to break it to this guy, he is never ever going to get $1,600 for it. This guy's not even going to get close to $900 for his system. If he did, I'd sell mine easily. So let's quickly hunt down one. Here's one at 200. Let's see if this one is only one socket. Rip. Now you could just go with one of these guys with only one, and then add the second processor yourself if you feel brave enough. Or if you've ever built a computer, you're not going to have a problem with this at all. And the one I picked is actually really old. So here, let's just grab this one at $200. And then let's actually just go get the part right now. Let's see here. You have to make sure that on these dual processor systems, if you're going to add a second processor, it has to be the same processor. Exactly the same. So, it's an X5450. So, we'll grab a Xeon X4540. Look at that. There it is, 19 bucks. And it'll just right away go ahead, T7400. Heatsink. Wha-bam! There we go. Oh, that one has no screws. Doesn't have screws? You want to make sure it has screws, because these use unique screws. That does not have screws. That one does have screws. I would shop around a little bit more, try to find one cheaper. But, you know, we're just doing this as a demonstration. Alright. This guy in the RAM, we got 4 gigs. We need to add more RAM. I mean, 4 gigs would be fine, but we can do better. This guy has 8, count them, 8 slots of RAM. So it takes, and you'd have to look all this up. It takes a bit of research to do this, but this is just to show the kind of results you can get. So I need DDR2 fully buffer DIMM. PC2 5300. And yeah, you'll notice right off the bat that it's server RAM. But here we go. Wha-bam. 16 bucks. I've got myself 8 additional gigs. Now the thing to remember is that you have to install on a system like this. The RAM has to be in pairs. So that one, it's 2x4. We're good to go. You couldn't just add one more stick. And now, actually, what was the hard drive in here? We might need to upgrade the hard drive. There's 160 gig in there. Yeah, we'll leave it. Why not? You can always change that later if you wanted. You got 4 hard drive slots to play in there anyway. And then in mine, I've got a GTX 780, but we're going to go a notch higher and go with a 980. And again, try to go with a stock one. You don't want to go anything real fancy, because what ends up happening is on overclock. Oh, that thing. Anyway, on guys that are overclocked, they tend to require more power than they should. So we'll say, let's look at this guy. Is this just the board? This doesn't look right. Okay, yeah, it is 2 6-pins. The thing is about this particular tower is that on the inside, it has auxiliary connectors, but they're 2 6-pins. You can, and on mine I did this because I have a different card, you can use Molex adapters and get the pins you need. I went and turned the 2 6-pins into an 8-pin and 2 Molex connectors in there and turned them into a 6-pin. And that gave me the 8 and 6 pin I needed for the GTX 780 that's in mine. But going with a 980, you got more power. You can find one for around 400 bucks. You can probably, maybe a little bit more. This one was actually kind of a nice little find. But just do the math real quick. As soon as I find the calculator app, I mean. You're talking 200 plus your second processor for 20 plus an additional 30 because we went way high on that, plus 16 plus 400 for the card. I don't know how we ended up with 666, but there you go, 666 for about a bit more than what you get a new mediocre system for. You've got a monster. You've got 8 cores at 3 gigahertz each core and frickin' 12 gigs of RAM. Your hard drive's a little weak. That can always be upgraded later. You can even throw in, another $50 for a hard drive, whatever. And then you've got a GTX 980, one of the most powerful cards you can possibly get right now, without going into something stupid high like a 980 Ti or a Titan X or whatever. And for, just under $700. Normally, to get a computer with a 980 in it, you're looking north of $1,000. $400 saved right there, just by going and building up off a framework. Now, granted, The T7400 is a computer from 2008. It is starting to show its age in the CPU end, even though it's 2 quad cores. I'm kind of now debating with my rig if I want to upgrade it down the road. But let's just say with something newer. Let's go with no, what the heck? We'll go with an HP Z600. No, 620. No, 600. Screw it, Z620. I regret my decision. That's just the chassis, that's not helpful. Okay, so the Z620 is still a little too new. That actually only just recently became obsolete. So let's go back to the Z600. That's a 2011 system. And, you know, there you go. That's actually not bad right there. You know, sleek system, looks real nice from HP. On the inside, it's nice and clean. There's your 2 processors right there. It's got 2 graphic cards in it right now. You can easily pop those 2 out, pop in your GTX 980. And if you'd rather stick with an AMD card, go ahead. I wouldn't recommend it, though. AMD is just no right now. Just no. Under that panel there is where your RAM is. It's got 6 slots in there. You can kind of see 3 of them right there. Trust me, the other 3 are under that panel. There's your hard drive bays right there. You know, it's a nice clean system, and there's your power supply at the very bottom. Now, maybe that's not enough for you. That's the compact version. Let's talk about the Z800. You know, a little bit more expensive. But here you go. Right here, here's one for $400. You know, bigger, wider on the side. You got more room to play with on the other side. This one particular listing doesn't have any of the internal shots. Let me try to find one real quickly that does. But you get my point. And yeah, that's it with the panels off. With the panels, take the panels off. There you go. You got 1 processor in there right now. 1's out. Up there is where the RAM is. There's your graphic card, and you can see the 2 aux connect. You can see one of the aux connectors right there, and right above that's the slot where the other one would connect in. This is what I used to do. Was just take these guys and work them to be fantastic machines for the home. I mean, yeah, they've now outlived their usefulness for the engineering firms. But for us here, where we want to go and just play some high-end games, we don't need to simulate what an underground pocket of oil catching fire would do to the entire Earth. We don't need to simulate global warming. We don't need to simulate the sun exploding. We just want to go play Crysis. That's it. Or go play some Fallout 4. Or in the case of the system using the Optiplex, just go and play some basic Borderlands or some Undertale. Whatever. That's all we want. And these can easily put out. The only downside is that they take a little bit more power. They're not as power efficient. And really, when push comes to shove, is $1 or $2 on your power bill each month really going to make a difference? Probably not. But that's it for this. If you have any questions, you ever want tips for doing something like this, you know, feel free to hit me up with an email. EagleFalconTech@gmail.com. That's it from me. We'll see how things change with the Apple story from when I reported on it and when this airs on Wednesday. Take care, everyone, and rest well.